Anyways. Okay. Okay. Today Daf Ches, right? Okay. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. And the source of our learning we should have Migdash immediately. For Shlema, for whoever needs. Today we start right on top of Daf Ches. Harini Nazik Sareshi. This Mishnah we actually had quoted yesterday. A lot of what we're going to learn today we had quoted yesterday. So when we quoted it yesterday, the order was a little different. Before we said Harini Nazik Kafara Aretz Sareshi Chalayam. The order switches. I don't know why it does that. Okay. Here it says, if someone accepts on himself to be a Nazir, like the hair on his head, which we said was an undefined number. Kafar Aretz. Dr. Stein, remember Jigen, the Yiddish comedian? He said it, spoke about the theory of relativity. So he said, like two hairs on my head is not a lot, but 2 hairs in my soup is more than. So, or like the dust of the earth, or like the sand of the sea. So Harez and Nazir Olam. So he's going to be a Nazir Olam. Did we learn this, that it was a Nazir forever? Or did we learn that, well, it goes on, it's clear. We said, he doesn't really mean that he's a Nazir Olam. He means he's a Nazir every 30 days forever. He's a Nazir every 30 days forever. It's really Nazir Li'olam. That's how we wanted to read it. But it's many, many Nazirisin till the rest of it, for the rest of his life, every 30 days. And we learned that he doesn't mean it's one long Naziris his whole life. Why not? Because it was undefined. If he wanted to have one long Naziris, he would have to give me an exact number, or not an exact number, anything that's defined. You could say 1,000 years. It's also a defined number. That would work. 100 years. That would work. But if it tells me something that's undefined, then that means that it just continues starting over. That's what we learned yesterday. That's the opinion of the Rabbanan, of the Tanakama. Rebbe says no. Rebbe says that this is one long Naziris. His whole life, he never shaves his head. So just to clarify, there's a concept of a Nazir Olam that he shaves his head once, like Abshalom, that he shaves his head once a year. Mekel Bitar. So actually, he has to use a razor. I don't think he shaves. I'm using the term shaves. I think he trims with a razor. It says not with the scissors. I don't know. That makes it like more complicated. But so he's allowed to trim his hair, to cut his hair once a year. Then we have a Nazir Li'olam, where he's a Nazir, not a Nazir Olam. He's a Nazir Li'olam. Every 30 days, he's a Nazir again. And he trims his hair he shaves his head every 30 days, and he brings the sacrifices because he restarts his Naziris. And then you have a Nazir Achasarucha, which Rebbe is talking about now. You just have one long Naziris. He never cuts his hair. This is not a Nazir Shimshon. It sounds like a Nazir Shimshon, but a Nazir Shimshon would be allowed to go to a cemetery. This is just like he said, I'm a Nazir for 60 days, or he just gave a time that's longer than his life. So. But he never can trim, and he can't go he's a regular Nazir, but he can never cut his hair, and it never ends. Okay. Ve'ezahu megaleach achas l'shleishim. According to Rebbe, the Mishnah goes on, when would he actually have to cut his hair every 30 days? That would be if Omer or Ha'omer Hari alai Nazirus Kisar Reisha Kavar's Kolayim. See, Rebbe's being medayek here. That he didn't say Hareini Nazir. If he says Hareini Nazir, I am a Nazir, like the hairs on my head, then that would be forever. One long Nazirus. But if he says I am a Nazirus, which means I'm accepting on myself multiple Nazirus, like the hairs on my head, then that would be that it starts over every 30 days. So we have that detail here of Nazir versus Nazirus, the singular, the plural. It makes a huge difference according to Rebbe. Okay, we're still in the Mishnah. Hareini Nazir Malaya Bayas and Malaya Kupa. Someone says, I'm going to be a Nazir, like the house is filled, or like the box is filled. Taisva says that he has a box or a house in front of him when he's saying this. Now, the Gemara is going to discuss this. Most of our Gemara is going to be discussing this case, so let's pay attention to this. What can I say? We have to check. If what he means to say, we had this yesterday, what he means to say is I'm going to be, he says, I'm going to be a big Nazir or a small Nazir. So we said that what that meant was that he's referring to the difficulty that it is for him to be a Nazir. He says, I'm going to be a Nazir like this house is full, like this full house. Then maybe he just means that, oh my gosh, this is hard for me, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Maybe that's what he means. So we have to examine him, interrogate him to see if that's what he means. If that's not what he meant, he just says that he took a nazir like the house is full. Then we have to take a look at the house or the box. So we look at the box, like it's filled with mustard, nazir kol yamav, and he's going to be a nazir for the rest of his life. Now, the box being filled with mustard, I think Moshe told me he grew mustard. Did you do mustard in Israel? Mustard seeds are very small. So that's sort of like saying like the sand of the sea or like the hairs on my head. It's an undefined number. So what do we say by an undefined number? Undefined number was machlekes between the Rabbanan and Rebbe. Is it a 30-day that it starts over every 30 days according to the Rabbanan? Or according to Rebbe, it's one long Nazirus. So now we have a machlekes. It's funny, the Mishnah doesn't tell me that now there's a machlekes. I guess it's so obvious, it doesn't bother to say that. Whatever the case is, we're taking quite a strict opinion here. And we're saying that we're viewing the box as if it's filled with mustard. We have other options. I mean, I could view the box as if it's filled with pumpkins. And then there'll just be 5 pumpkins in there, depending on if they're doing that. They have this challenge, see how big you can grow your pumpkin. So that's a New England thing. Or it could be filled with dough. And then Taisus mentions it would just be one Nazirus, because one big piece of dough is all dough. It's not like separate doughs. It's all one big dough. It'd just be one. But so we're taking a strict opinion here. He's going to be a Nazir for the rest of his life. What type of Nazir? That would be a machlekes, Tanakama and Rebbe. An undefined amount.
An undefined Nazir forever can shave his head.
Yeah. What happened is, if he gives an undefined number, then his Nazir starts over every 30 days, and he shaves his head, and he brings a sacrifice.
Just wondering if it's all right to ask a person, what did you mean?
Oh.
And why do we go through all these illustrations where the one on the summit means this or the summit means that?
Yeah.
Just ask.
Right.
But then
The question is, what your question is, when do we say that we ask him, and when do we have all these other gemaras where we're just making conclusions on our own? Okay.
but a Nazir that doesn't specify, isn't it the full 30 days?
Yeah. So if he doesn't specify, he just says I'm a Nazir, then he says these 30 days. if he gives a number that's undefined,
Right. Like it says, like,
here's in my head, or something like that.
Violate you.
Right. I think so. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if it wasn't clear, let's say, violated his base is not going to enforce it. If he violated his Nazir, he said, I'm going to be like this thought. You understood to be mustard seed, he understood to be watermelons. Now violates his Nazir. Basically, isn't going to enforce it anyway.
Right.
So it is. Who's going to clarify? Who cares to clarify?
Whether or not you get punished is not an answer.
No, he made a promise. He has in mind a certain idea. You don't have clarity. Okay, you don't have clarity. The witnesses who heard him make his promise don't have clarity. Fine. Who's going to enforce it? Who's going to enforce it? The witnesses thought he meant mustard. He thought he meant water.
But for that, why do we need to know all this learning that we've done in this consecutive period or something? What does he really, what does it mean?
So that's a separate question. I keep
Ah,
along the same line.
amazing.
Which is, why do we accept this?
Okay.
It's not clear.
Wow.
You just
Let me take
narrow
this
it down.
out.
Well, ask him.
Yeah. Well, you may
This
not-
is,
could be not
let's
doing
see.
that.
This is mustard seed. See that?
Could be not- he made his pledge and then he
They're
disagreed.
tiny.
I'll do the next one.
Can you eat them like this? Will they taste like mustard, or it has to be turned into? You probably have to make a shahakal instead of a dama. Oh, these are to be planted. But mustard is this is what they must grind it and they make it into mustard, no? Yeah. Why is it not yellow?
This is spicy.
Yeah.
Very cool. Oh, this is growing. This is for growing. Oh, that's so cool.
They get them from the plants that are.
This is red giant mustard. And these are giant mustard. No, that means the plant is going to be giant. It doesn't mean the seeds are giant. Okay. Okay, that's cool.
Do the gourd already?
Not yet. So Mary Poppins gonna pull out of her bag. Okay. Harini Nazir Mikanad Makamplaini. Someone says, I'm a Nazir from here until such and such a place. So Indim Kama Yamim Mikanad Makamplaini. We have to see how long it takes to get to that place. In Pachas Milamid Yom, if it takes less than 30 days, so Nazir Lamid Yom, then, but like whenever he says anything less than 30, it automatically fills into 30. So it's going to be a Nazir for 30 days. Vimlav, but if it's more than 30, Imlav over here means if it's more than 30, so then Nazir Kaminyan Ayamim, then he's going to be a Nazir like the amount of days that it is, one long Nazirus until that amount of time. We're considering this a defined number.
So we can't make a condition saying, I'll be a Nazir until I do something.
He can
So
do
we
that
said until a
also.
period of time.
He can do that also, but then we would have to. We didn't learn that actually.
say,
Let's
like,
leave that alone because
okay.
we didn't learn that yet. Here we're looking at it at a time,
Mhm.
and we're measuring time by a distance.
He's not just going.
Well, actually, the Gemara before that we learned yesterday, Rava explained this Mishnah that it's Kishayachzik Baderach, that he's actually on the road, and that's why we're viewing it like this, that.
Wow.
And not that every day that it takes or every stop that it takes is another Nazirus. We could have viewed it at every stop that he takes is another Nazirus. Every stop along the way would be another. We said, no, he's actually on the road and he's just referring to the fact that he wants to get there safely. And this is some sort of segula. It's going to be a Nazir. It's going to help him get there safely. Which could be. He doesn't drink wine along the way. Maybe he will get there safely. For several reasons. Okay. Harini Nazir Kaminin Yamaisachama. I'm going to be a Nazir like the amount of days in the solar year, 365. Mainin Naziris Kaminin Yamaisachama has to count the amount of Naziris of 365 times, which is 10,000 something, would be 365 times 30.
30 years.
Yeah, well, it would be 30 days times 365 is 30, would be 30 years,
No.
but-
30 years,
right? Because the years would be 30 years. Yeah. So I just did it because if I times 30 times 365, and then I divide it again by 365, so then I'd be left with 30. Right.
354 is this the lunar year.
Oh,
365
that's what you mean. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Yeah, because you would then divide it by three, you would times it by 365 and then divide it by 354. Right? Whatever you want. It'd be 11 days. Okay. So 11 times 30 is 330. Right?
I knew that.
So that would be a year off, almost a year off. Right. Almost a year off. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Maisahaya, Rabbi Yehuda said that we actually had a story like this. When the person finished all his Naziris, his 365 Naziris that he had to do, so he passed away. So this would depend on, if this is a good thing to do or not a good thing. It depends on when he took the vow. If he was 100 when he took the vow, then this is a segula for Arichas Yamin. But if he was younger, then it's a sad story. Okay. Okay. Let's take a look. But I just want to point out that when he said that he's going to be a Nazir, like the days of the solar year, he added the word communion, like the amount of. If he wouldn't have said communion, then he just would have been a Nazir for 365 days. But he says like the amount of, just like in English, you could say, I'm going to be a Nazir for a year, then he's a Nazir for a year. He says, I'm going to be a Nazir, the amount of a year, that would mean that he's a Nazir 365 times. Okay.
So 30 multiplied by 365.
Yeah. Okay. So Reina Sakupa, the Gemara says, we take a look at the box. We see that it's, we imagine what it would be like if it was filled with mustard seed.
Oh, that's.
Now, this is the mustard seed. It'd be like a, well, look at how it like floats around in there. See that? Isn't that cool? Yeah, it's floating around.
Yeah.
It's like a magic trick.
Suspended.
You have to see that. It's suspended in there. It's like floating around with the static. So it would be filled with mustard seed. That's an undefined number. And v'nazir kol yamav. The Gemara has a question. Why are you doing that? Why are you viewing it like it's mustard seed? Imagine that it was filled with kishuin. Is either cucumbers or squash or zucchini.
Or
Is that a gourd?
a lot.
Oh. So that's a squash. This is a squash. What type of squash is this? That's not an acorn.
No,
What is that?
it's a Caribbean squash.
Caribbean.
It's called calabasa.
Oh, very nice.
It's not like your Halloween pumpkin, which is hollow. This is all
Uh-huh.
the lot. What's the Hebrew here?
What is kalabasa? What does that have a meaning? Or is it just the
That's
name
the
of the
Indian
squash?
word.
Uh-huh. What's the place Calabasas? Is that associated with this?
I don't know where that is.
In California.
Oh, maybe it's.
You gotta get out more.
Uh-huh.
Is it known for squashes?
Hmm?
Is it known for
Maybe.
its-
Actually, it's known for its acorn trees.
Interesting.
It's a place with wheat fields and trees.
Wow.
Well, probably-
I
That's
remember
when,
when it was at.
that's when the settlers came, when the, on the Indian
What-
times. Like it might have had a name from the native tree that.
That could be. Right. So we ask, why are you looking at it as mustard seeds and then you're in trouble because it's an undefined amount? Why don't we view it as how much it's filled with squash or pumpkins? And then it is a defined amount. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would be a defined amount. We have a totally different halacha here. A defined amount would be that he'd be a nazir for that amount. An undefined amount means he's a nazir starting over every time that everything switches.
You literally like open up the squash and like count the number of seeds. Like here it is. It's just this arbitrary number.
No, so if it's a mustard seed, so it's something that you can't really
exactly.
count.
It's like
And the squash, we're not talking about the squash seeds. We're talking about the squash. How many squash you can fit into a box. That's a defined number. That's like a dozen eggs or something. That's yeah, you can see how many I could fit in. It's not something that's like so tiny that it's hard to count.
Each one is
Would
30.
be 30, but over here we wouldn't say that because if someone gives a defined number,
over 30, then
defined number according to the Tanakama is that amount of right. An undefined number was a machlekes
as
Rebbe
long as
and
it's not under 30.
right under 30 automatically becomes 30. But so Amar Chizkiah says.
I've been listening, but
Chizkiah says, the machlekes shinuya. You're right. This is actually a machlekes. And the reason why we're saying what we're saying is because we're choosing one side of the machlekes. If we would say the other side, then we would say differently. This is the opinion of Reb Shimon. This is the opinion of Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon is always Reb Shimon by Yochai. The Amar that he says that we go strict when it comes to Naziris. We take the stricter view. The Amar Adam Machnas Esatzmei Ledavar Shesfekei Chamer Mivadai. Even if it's a suffix, if it would be definite what he means, then it would be more lenient. But because over here it's a doubt, what he means, we're going to take the doubt, even though that's stricter. We go stricter even in the doubt. In Tanya, we have a brisa that's the source of all of this. It says, Harini Nazir al Manas Yehi Bekri Zeh Meyakor. Someone says, I'll be a Nazir on condition that this pile of grain has 100 core. Core is 30 sa. Sa is 144 eggs. He says,
which now costs more money.
right, went up a dollar. I saw in one of the stores. Anything that contains eggs is now $1 more. So there's a large amount over here. He says, I'm going to nazir if this silo or something has 100 core in it. Well, Vahalach, he goes to check it out. Turns out that he's not able to measure it anymore because some of it disappeared. So now he has an undefined number. Impossible to check this out. So what's he gonna do? Is he a nazir or is he not a nazir? All dependent on the size of this. Reb Shimon says he's a nazir. Shesafik nazir is lahachmer because we have to go strict. And Rabbi Yehuda matir shesafik nazir is lahachmer. Rabbi Yehuda says no, we go lenient. Say that he wasn't a nazir. Okay, so what are we doing over here? We're going to take the stricter view and we're going to say that it's filled with mustard seeds because that's Reb Shimon's view that says you always go strict by Naziris, the strictest possible option. Rabbi Yochanan says, not necessarily do you have to say that. This turns out is a machlekes Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan. Chizkiah, I think, is one of the sons of Reb Chia. You have that on the chart? Reb Chia would be right on the top of the Amiraim in Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah.
And Chizkiah is one of his sons.
Yeah, Yehuda is the other one.
Yeah, Chizkiah and Yehuda.
But
So-
that's not this Yehuda.
No, the Rabbi Yehuda that we are discussing, that was Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai, not Rebbe, because Rebbe is going to argue shortly. And now we have Chizkiah arguing with Rabbi Yochanan. They're just about the same generation. Rabbi Yochanan says, I feel Tim Rabbi Yehuda. I could tell you that the Mishnah that we're talking about, that you view it as if it's mustard seeds, is really the view of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yochanan says, I have a huge difference between the case of Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda, that machlekes, versus what we're talking about here. Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda were arguing about if a person becomes a Nazir or not. Does he become a Nazir, or does he not become a Nazir? He took a condition. If that condition is met, he's a Nazir. If it's not met, then he's not a Nazir. Reb Shimon says we view it as if it's met. Reb Yehuda says we view it as if it wasn't met. But what we're talking about over here is that he is becoming a Nazir. The question is for how long, or what type of Nazir. So Reb Yehuda that says over there, we view it that the Nazir says the condition's not met and he's not a Nazir at all. That's what Reb Yehuda say if he's not a Nazir at all. But over here, Reb Yehuda, that's even though Reb Yehuda is lenient there, but over here where he becomes a Nazir, maybe over here Reb Yehuda would say that you have to be strict because he's a Nazir already. You get the difference. Does it start or does it not start? Reb Yehuda says we say that it doesn't start. But once it starts, that how does he get out of it? That's a different story. So even Rabbi Yehuda would say that you view it as if it's mustard seeds, and that's like this whole long Nazirus, which would be an undefined number, and you'd have to every 30 days for the rest of his life shave his head. Okay, the Gemara says, "Am I lie? What's the problem?"
But I have a question. Is there enough community between Nazir Olam and Nazir Olam, which we're discussing? Because the other one we said if he goes to a Chacham after 10 years and he asks to get it, he loses everything. Here I would assume he still retains every 30 days that have existed prior.
I'm not sure because the Chacham is Eiker Mi Kari.
But it's a renewal every day. It's like whole term life as opposed to whole life.
I understand, but when he says that I'm going to be a Nazir 365 times or something, so when that gets annulled, you're suggesting that maybe it's only being annulled from 100 and on. Yeah. Now I'm not sure if it works like that. We had a discussion in Nedarim if the Chacham could annul part of a nether or not the whole nether. We had a discussion like that. Now it would be dependent on that.
The rules of annulment.
I think so. Yeah, it applies even to Truma and Chala, and I think it applies to Nazirs as well. Okay, let's make it. The kids say, I already have a title for my book. I just have to write it, right? So, the Gemara asks now, what's the issue over here? We're not sure how to view this box. Is it filled with mustard or is it filled with, all theoretically, is it filled with mustard or is it filled with squash? These are seeds. No, the box is not theoretical. The box is right here. What's in the box is theoretical. That's it. He says this box, I'm going to be a Nazir like this box is filled. Well, he didn't say filled with what. So if I view it that it's filled with kishuim, so then what I would do is I would count how many kishuim would be in there, and then it would be like that amount of days. And maybe it's a Nazir for 30 days. If there's 30 cucumbers in there or whatever, it'd be a Nazir. Or maybe it would be
the other one.
or a squash. Or a squash.
That's bigger.
Yeah, so this is squash.
That's just a fraction of the squash.
Right. So what would happen now is that because it's a suffix, what he would do is he would complete the Nazirus of the Kishuim Meduluim, shave his head, and then the Nazirus would restart. And what did Rabbi Yehuda say when it comes to restarting the Nazirus? That if there's a doubt if it restarts, he says we don't restart it. See, what Rabbi Yochanan said was that really our Mishnah could be Rabbi Yehuda, and he's strict because the Nazir started. Right? Because the Nazir started. But if I view this as a doubt, what we would say is that according to Rabbi Yehuda, I end the first Naziris because there's a bunch of Naziris here, right? I would end the first one, and then I would restart, and then it would restart. But that would only restart if it was mustard. And I don't know if it's mustard. So because that's a doubt, restarting the Naziris, Rabbi Yehuda says you don't restart it. Yeah, it is a Safek Deraisa, but there is a machlekes here. If Safek Naziris is lahachmer lahakal. I'm not sure how that fits with Safek Deraisa. That's something we have to look into. What's the logic of Rabbi Yehuda? So the Gemara answers this question. You see, we're asking on Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said it could be the view of Rabbi Yehuda, but over here the Nazir started. We just don't know how to stop it. The Gemara is asking, show me know how to stop it. You stop it after the pumpkin size of Naziris. He shaves his head. You want to restart it because of a doubt, because of the mustard seeds. So don't restart it because Rabbi Yehuda says you don't start it if it's a doubt, and it could be, and it won't be the view of Rabbi Yehuda either. That's what we're saying. It won't be the view of Rabbi Yehuda. We're asking a question on Rabbi Yochanan that tries to make the Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, it shouldn't restart. We're saying that it goes forever in the Mishnah. Gemara says, "Hasal kadaitach," or maybe it's supposed to be "Leisal kadaitach." Don't think this. That Nazirisu the Kibbalah the Rabbi Yehuda Savala Karev. The Rabbi Yehuda Savala Karevi. Yeah, this adjustment of here to this. Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi. Now, what is the difference between if we say that it's Rabbi or if we say that it's not Rabbi? Difference is like this. The Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yomer Eidzim Megaleach Achas L'Shleishim. Bezu Shemegaleach Achas L'Shleishim Yoim, Ha'Imer, Harialai Naziras, Kesareshi Kaparayitz Kecholayam. I have a problem over here. We thought we have a simple solution. You see, we would do like this. I don't know if he took on himself a Naziris of mustard seeds or if he took on himself a Naziris of pumpkins. So we're being strict that he took on himself a Naziris of mustard seeds. We're asking why you strict. Finish one Naziris. Obviously, he took one. Finish one Naziris. Shave the head and don't restart it because Rabbi Yehuda holds you don't have to restart it if it's a doubt. I'm saying 1 second. If it's mustard seeds, so is it one long Naziris or is it many small Naziris? Machlekes Rebbe and the Rabbanan. So the Rabbanan would say it's many small Naziris. The Tanakama holds that it's many small. So according to the Rabbanan, what we would do is we would shave his head and bring the sacrifices after the first one, and all is good. According to Rebbe, he can't shave his head because it's one long Naziris. And you can't bring the sacrifices because you can't bring Chul and Bazar. It's not over. Naziris is still going on because according to Rebbe, an undefined number lasts forever. According to the Tanakama, undefined number was multiples of 30. Just continue. So now the Gemara says, so that's how we resolve that the Mishnah could really be Rabbi Yehuda, because even according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have no way out of this. It has to keep going. And we're not going to say that it's going to end, even though Rabbi Yehuda is usually lenient. Over here, even Rabbi Yehuda would be strict.
So undefined Nazir with the opinion that it's just one long continuous.
It's Rebbe.
Yeah. So he never cuts his hair.
He can never cut his hair, right? The end of his life. Right. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda misavala Rebbe. The Gemara asks, is it possible to say that Rabbi Yehuda is like Rebbe v'atanan? But we have a Mishnah. Harini Nazir k'minina meisachama. And if someone says that he's a nazir like the days of the year, the amount of the days of the solar year, and that concluded with Rabbi Yehuda, the Mishnah concluded with Ma'isa Hayokim and Meis. Rabbi Yehuda was the one that said that since that there was a person that actually took on himself to be a nazir like that, and right when he completed it, he died. Now that must mean that since he's using the word kivan shehishlim when he completed it, which the term hishlim would not mean that he completed one nazirus. Hishlim would mean that he completed the multiple of all those nazirus. Completed the set of, that's the word hishlim. That's at least one of the interpretations that we have for this Gemara. So if he accepted on himself many multiple nazirus, then we understand what's going on. If it's just one nazirus, do you say completed? You don't say the term completed over there. Yeah, there's another version to this Gemara, which this Rivan, which is in the position of Rashi over here, he says that it's really a multiple of 365 times 365. And would that ever end? He says, how much would that be? 365 times 365? It'd be 365 years. Would be three. So that would be that he would impossible to survive that. So is it possible that when he completed the 365 years, he then died? it would never come. Okay, anyway, that's not the version of our Mishnah. But another issue is Misavala Karebi. Does Rabbi Yehuda hold like Rebbe? By the way, if you're confused by Rabbi Yehuda being Rebbe, this Gemara doesn't make sense. Rabbi Yehuda is, of course, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai. Rebbe is Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. They both have the name Yehuda, but they're different people. Rebbe is younger. Rebbe is the age of Rabbi Yehuda's son. Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yossi. Those Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon. Does he hold like Rebbe? Tanya, but we have a brisa. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Reini Nazir Minyan Hilkati. How do they have the vowels there? Hilakti. Hilkate. Kayatz. Minyan Shibale Shmita. Rabbi Yehuda says that if someone says on himself that he's going to be a nazir, the amount of piles of figs that are in the field when they would dry the figs, or the amount of rows that there are in the field by Shemitah. Apparently during Shemitah, there's a lot more rows than there are during the other years. So, Maina Naziris, Kaminin Hilkate Kayats, Kaminin Shvile Shemitah. Is it Shibale or Shvile? I have two versions to this. I have in Taisvis it's Shvile, and I have in the Rashi or the Rivan it's Shibale. Stalks or rows.
I didn't know if there's a dot.
I have Shibale. In my Gemara it says Shibale, but I have in Taisvis it says Minyan Shvile. He adds a yud in. He adds a yud, so that it would mean that it would be Shvile. Yeah, this is difficult. This too many variations here. Okay, so whatever the case is, I have Rabbi Yehuda saying that a person is counting individual amounts, multiples of 30, the amount of piles of figs there are, the amount of stalks or rows there are. So whatever the case is, it's clearly not the opinion of Rebbe. Rebbe would have said that it's just one long Nazirus. Rabbi Yehuda is saying it's not one long Nazirus. Well, the Gemara answers that that's not a problem because minyan shiny. Over here, he added in the word the amount of. We learned already in the Mishnah, if you say the amount of, then you would agree that the amount of means multiples of, right? We mentioned that minyan is different. When we shanile le Rebbe minyan, but 1 second, does Rebbe actually say we're trying to say the Rebbe Yehuda holds of Rebbe? And we said, but 1 second, why does he say multiples? Rebbe doesn't say multiples. Rebbe says one long. So we said that, oh, well, over here he says minyan. But does Rebbe hold that minyan is different? But Tanya, we have a brisa. Reini nazir communion meischama, my nazir's communion meischama, kimei alavana, mine kimei alavana. Rabbi Yemer she'emer nazir salai communion meischama, communion meisalavana. Rabbi says, even in the case where he says communion meischama, the amount of days of the solar year, he's still not a nazir. The amount of days, he's still just a nazir one long Naziris, and it's not separate Nazirisin unless he says Nazirus alai, unless he uses the plural, which means Rabbi doesn't hold that minyan makes a difference if you use the word the amount of. My answer is Rabbi he argues with Rabbi about one thing, and he agrees with him about another thing. He agrees with Rabbi with one thing, Nazir's Kibbalah, or rather, Chada Nazir's Kibbalah, that it's one long Nazirus. That would explain why in our Mishnah he's not going to be able to shave his head after one Nazirus when he says like the box, and then stop it right there, because it could be that it's like mustard seeds and it lasts forever. But he also argues with Rabbi about one thing. Rabbi Yehuda says that it does restart, turns into multiples of if he uses the word minyan, the amount of, and Rabbi doesn't hold of that. Okay, now the Gemara says, Tan Rabbanan ready Nazir kol yemei chayev. If someone says I'm a Nazir all the days of my life, Harini Nazir Olam, or he says I'm a Nazir forever. So Harei a Nazir Olam, he's a Nazir forever, and this would be, I assume, the like Avshalom, that every what's it called? Every year he can cut his hair. Afilu meya shana. Let's say he says, I'm giving a nazir even for 100 years. Afilu elef shana for 1,000 years. Ain't a nazir olam, a nazir le'olam. This is not a nazir olam. This is a nazir le'olam. And le'olam means that every 30 days he shaves his head. He just restarts. But why? Because there's a set time. Tan Rabbanan, start in the Bryce. Arini nazir v'achas. I'm a nazir plus one. Minus time. So that means he's a nazir twice. Va'id, if he adds on, I'm a nazir 1 plus 1 and also minus shalish, that's going to be 3. Vishuv, and then again, so that's going to be minus arba. It's going to count 4. This pshita, that's obvious. He said plus 1 and also another, and it would be and another, and then again would be in 4. It says ma the time of vishuv kikulu. Maybe it says and then again means that not just one more. Maybe vishuv again, then again means there's going to be 1, 2, and 3 again. The Havali Shis, and that would be 6. Kamash Malandolai, we say that no. It says, and then again, it's just one more. Don Rabbanan, done in the Bryce, Rainy Nazir. Someone says, I'm a Nazir. Sumchas Aimer, Sumchas then explains that if he says Hain or Hin in Greek, Hin means Achas, means one. I did in Masech the Sukkah also. Hin means one. Digun, if he says Digun, that means 2. Trigun, that means 3. Tetragon means 4. And pentagon means 5. Now, what's the chiddush? No, I thought it's 5. Octagon is 8. So, what's the chiddush over here? One of the possibilities is that even though he's using sides, he's using geometric shapes, not he's not using amount of time, and nevertheless he means, or there's different interpretations of what the chiddush is. Well, Taner Rabbanan.
If you said a circle, is that then?
Take a look at this. Base eagle, a circular house. Is a nazir like a circular house, or a digun. It says digun, which is another type of shape. Trigun. It sounds like a triangle. Pentagon or 5, it skipped 4. I'm sorry, not if he said it. This is a house that has these shapes. A house that's shaped like a circle. A house that's shaped with round on one side and a point on the other, like a cone, round on top. Or if it's a triangle, or if it's a pentagon, then it doesn't get tumas tsaras on the house. Tetragon. But if it's a square, it has 4 sides, four sides. But tam ben goyim, then it does get tsaras. My taima. What's the reason for this? Lamatawaimer kir kiris. It says twice in the pasuk kir kiris. Means the corners. And lamaila hu aimer, and above in the pasuk it says kir kiris, the corners. In kiris, it says twice. Corners. Harikan arba. That means 4, because the plural. And so that tells me that in order to have tzuras, it needs to be a square house. It can't be those other shapes. Okay. Well, in that last discussion over here about when he says these Greek words, some say that the chiddush is he can become a nazir by saying it in Greek. Some say that we had established that. But some say that these are actually terms that the sages said are nicknames, even though he doesn't say a nazir. But this is considered a yad for naziris or a kinoi for naziris, something like that.
Who's doing Thursday?
I'm not going to be here Thursday. Anyone can do that?
I'll do it.
Okay, we have a taker.
Oh, wow.
He translates